Good morning. We're proceeding now to Lesson 8. In Lesson 8, we begin a two-unit section on Jewish moral education. At the outset, it's important to emphasize that our intention is not to try to cover this topic comprehensively, but what I mainly want to do is problematize our understanding of Jewish moral education. We've talked a lot about envision, that our ends have to be understood deliberatively. We have to reflect upon what are the ultimate aims of Jewish education. And you could think that when we come to the issue of Jewish moral education, here we have a consensus. There's no need really to think and reflect upon Jewish moral education. Everyone agrees that Jewish education has to try to create moral, ethical students with character and virtues. Perhaps this is the only issue that secular, orthodox, liberal religious Jewish educators could agree upon. But what I want to try to show you is that even in an area like this, where there's seemingly a consensus, if we reflect upon what we actually mean by making our students ethical, we'll see that it requires deep deliberation. There are different models of Jewish moral education, and if we think about our purposes in terms of moral education more deeply, that will affect our practices. So we're going to look at three models of moral education in the next 2 weeks. This week we're going to start with an Aristotelian Maimonidean model, which emphasizes moral behavior. We'll also look at a second model, what I call a Deweyan model, that is implemented in a school called Beit Rabban. Here the emphasis is more on moral reasoning. And the last model, which will be investigated in next week's class, is that of Martin Buber, a Buberian model, which is concerned about cultivating moral relationships. Obviously, we'll delve more deeply into each of these models in the next 2 weeks. Now let's look at the video segments for this week. We have 3 video segments. The first one is obviously this video introducing week 8. We'll then proceed to a video on Maimonides on character education. That's the first model. And then the third video is on the second model on Dewey and Steinmetz. Devorah Steinmetz is the principal of Beit Rabban. Their method in terms of moral education. We'll try to contrast the differences between these two models. That brings us to our reading assignments. There are 2 reading assignments here. The first is a chapter from Maimonides' main legal work, his code, Mishneh Torah. One of the sections there is Hilchot Deot, laws of character traits, and I want you to look at the first chapter there. Obviously, you should read this before you proceed to the video on Maimonides on character education. The second reading is a chapter from Daniel Pekarsky's Vision at Work, the Theory and Practice of Beit Rabban. Pekarsky has an account of the school Beit Rabban, a very innovative school headed by Devorah Steinmetz. And in chapter 8 of that book, he talks about their methods in terms of moral education. So that's the reading assignment. Let's proceed to the writing assignment. Here I want you to start thinking about what your personal vision is in terms of moral value, character education. Obviously, it should be in dialogue with the 2 models that we looked at. Where do you see yourself in terms of the contrast between a model that's more about moral character, moral behavior, or are you more inclined to the Deweyan Beit Rabban model, which is more about moral reasoning? So that's your writing assignment. Finally, let's look at the forum. Here we're going to try to teach each other about moral education. Firstly, we'll discuss the state of character education in the context of Jewish education. Please share your experiences and insights on the topic, and I look forward to a lively discussion, the first unit in our 2-unit topic on moral education. Thank you.